Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna be working with some Phalaenopsis orchids. We're gonna try to rejuvenate them. Now, these Phalaenopsis orchids are not sick in any way. They're in no danger of dying, most of them at least. However, they did suffer from serious neglect in the store prior to purchasing. Now, in the orchid hobby, this is a very common problem because usually stores don't have time to properly water them, or they water them a bit too much and some of the roots are dying. Also, the medium is already pretty old, so finding stressed orchids is really not uncommon. However, how to go about it will come with experience, because most of us tend to panic if we see some floppy leaves or if we see that the flowers are dropping. However, most of the times it's not the case. So I'm going to show you a few of my examples. Hopefully this will give you some ideas of what to look for in the future, or at least put you at ease that your orchid will not die. Now, first things first, just because a Phalaenopsis orchid has flowers does not mean she's happy. Also, just because a Phalaenopsis orchid dropped her buds and flowers and the flower spikes are drying doesn't mean the orchid is sick and is about to die. There are actually other signs we need to check for, and usually we need to look at the leaves and at the root system. So let's take the first stressed Phalaenopsis orchid. As you can see, the flowers are all gone, the flower spike is already turning yellow, and it will continue to yellow most probably towards the base. But if we take a look at the orchid, we can see that she doesn't really look all that bad. Indeed, we have some floppy leaves, some wrinkles in the leaves. The leaves have lost their shine, and overall she doesn't look like she's happy. And indeed, she's not happy. However, I suspect there's really nothing wrong with this orchid except that she really needs some more attention. Now, the fact that this orchid has leathery, floppy leaves means that it's dehydrated. Dehydration can be caused by not watering enough, but also by loss of roots. So now that we deducted this orchid is dehydrated, let's take a look at the root system. So through this clear plastic pot, we can actually see the roots. And as much as we can see, they don't really look all that bad. So we can draw the conclusion that this orchid is simply dehydrated. However, to be sure, we need to unpot this orchid, provide new medium, maybe a new pot, but we need to get rid of this old medium and take a closer look at the roots. So with all of the orchids today and orchids in general, I do usually repot them. This gives me the opportunity to really inspect the root system. Also, by providing fresh new medium, I make sure that there are no pests inside the pot and that the medium is not old and very acidic and it does not create problems for the roots. So the first thing I will do after I remove the stake from the flower spike is unpot the orchid. And let's take a look at the root system. So as you can see, it really does not look bad. However, this medium looks pretty broken down. It is pretty mushy. And whenever bark gets mushy, it's a sign that it's already too old and it's starting to decompose. Now, here's an interesting fact about this orchid. It appears its stem was cut. Now, usually this happens when the stem of an orchid, or the axis, the central part of the orchid, gets too long. As the orchid grows, it will shed bottom leaves naturally, but this will create an elongated stem with dried leaf remains, and it doesn't necessarily look pretty. So what I suspect happened here is that this orchid is actually older than I imagined, and somebody cut the stem at some point. Now, this doesn't mean that the orchid is sick or that it's weak or it will not survive. It appears to me that this is already dry. It does not pose threats for the orchid. However, it does look like this medium was pretty old because I see a little bit of mold here, but we will fix that. So I will get rid of this old medium. I will also get rid of the pot because I don't use plastic pots. However, you can totally reuse this pot if you are growing your orchids in plastic pots. Just make sure you properly wash it before reusing. Oftentimes you will have bits of the old medium sticking to the roots. Actually, if you wet the roots, you will find that these pieces come off much easier because the roots become more flexible, they expand a little bit. So what I will do is go to the sink, water the root system of this orchid and try to clean it as best as I can from the bits of the old medium. Okay, so as you can see, I removed quite a lot of the old medium. Also, by wetting the roots, I can better tell which roots are alive and which are dead. So the roots that are green and actually are plump and stiff, they have substance to them, they are definitely alive. However, dead roots look like this. They don't necessarily need to be yellow, sometimes they are brown. However, as you can see, they are papery thin, they have no substance to them. So what we need to do is cut away all the dead roots that we can see. Luckily, this orchid doesn't have too many dead roots. There is one more thing that I like to do with new orchids, and this is to spray their root system with hydrogen peroxide 3%. I've placed the solution in a spray bottle, and if you'd like to learn more about hydrogen peroxide, just check the description below. I do have some helpful links towards some videos where I talk about hydrogen peroxide. And here's where this solution comes in handy. It usually kills fungus. So by spraying the base of this orchid, I make sure that this does not get infected, and also I kill off the fungi that may affect it. By spraying the root system, I make sure there are no snails that will be transferred to my new medium and feed on the roots. And now that the orchid is prepared, it's time to pot it in my preferred setup. I'm using clay pots and also clay medium, but if you're using bark or sphagnum moss or plastic pots, it's pretty much the same thing. It all depends on your preferences. And here is my orchid potted. I didn't go through the process of showing you how I repotted it because it would take quite a long time. If you're interested in a video about repotting Phalaenopsis orchids, check the info card right here and you'll learn more. Now, as a final touch, I will cut this flower spike. With stress orchids, I usually don't cut the spikes if they have blooms, because there is a chance that by me hydrating the orchid, I rejuvenate it and it can actually hold on to the flowers and the spike. So when orchids are not sick but just stressed, I usually leave the flower spikes, at least for a little while, to see how the orchid reacts. However, in this case, the flower spike is already on his way out, and I personally am not interested in side spikes, so I will actually cut the spike from the base. So the care for this orchid now will be just like any other Phalaenopsis orchid. I will keep it in intermediate temperatures, intermediate light, not in direct sunshine. I will let her almost dry out and then provide water, and in a little while she should be hydrated and looking much better.